Miss George, thank you so much for being here today and telling your story. I think it's really incredible and courageous what you're doing. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Will. What was he like as a kid?
Well, Will was an adorable little fella. He had sparkling brown eyes and just little shiny dark brown hair and such a sweet smile. He was kind-hearted and he had a sweet spirit about him. Overall, I think, Will was an easy child to parent. He had a normal upbringing. Will had a brother that was 3 years older than he, and then he had a younger brother that was 4 years younger than he. And we were a close-knit family. Church was a huge part of our life, and so Will started going to Sunday school and church as a toddler and remained active with the church for high school and only into college. Our family enjoyed living in the small town of Mullins. My husband and I are both from Mullins. And we were, as a family, were very involved in the community and with community activities. And Will, along with our other two sons, loved playing recreational sports. And I would say that Will was just a friendly, easygoing child.
So your family's in Mullins, great town. It sounds like you have a great close-knit family. How was Will growing up when he started to become a teenager and then a young adult?
His love for sports continued on, and Will started, being in a small town, he started 4K and remained on the same campus until he graduated from high school.
Wow.
His love for sports continued, and he enjoyed the aspects of being in a smaller environment, and he worked hard academically, and for the majority of the time was on the honor roll, and he was a gifted athlete. He played sports year round. He played football, basketball, and golf. And he just, from what I see, he just had a pretty normal high school life. He had a girlfriend, and it was just sort of nothing out of the ordinary.
Right, and it sounds like just this great small town, all American guy. Was there any moment when you started to notice maybe something's changing or different in Will?
No, not at that point.
Hmm. And so, at what point did you realize something was happening? Was it a call for help from Will?
Well, after high school graduation, Will came to us his freshman year in college and told us that he had started taking prescription Adderall. And the reason was that it was a way for him to be able to keep up with his coursework. And that really kind of caught me off guard because I had not seen attention deficits in him at home, and I had a teacher contact me about having any type of standardized assessment done on Will, but he was pretty adamant that that was something that he needed to stay on. And I didn't notice during the 4 years of college because he was away from home and he would just come home for weekends and holidays and such. But after graduation, he came home for a period of time, And I could tell that he was having difficulty transitioning from being a student into entering the workforce. And I began to notice that he had irregular sleep patterns. And that was not something that I had observed with him when he was in high school. And so as time went on, he began to oversleep. He would not wake up. He would not hear the alarm. So he would oversleep. He would be tardy for work, or he would miss work. So that began to pose a problem with trying to maintain steady employment.
Right.
And about a year before he died, I began to notice a pattern. He would have times where it was like he had flu type symptoms, and he would feel so bad that he would have to go to the doctor.
But at the time, you don't know why.
No. And all I can say to that is, when you're living in this situation, you don't see things clearly. And as hard as we tried to put the pieces together to figure this out, the pieces just weren't fitting together. But there would be times that he would feel so bad that he would call me and ask me to take him to the doctor. And it was always for the same type symptoms. And this continued on, and then on May the 8th of 2016, he came and told me and his dad that he needed help because he was addicted to Adderall.
So as a parent, that of course is hard to hear. When your child comes to you for help with something like that, what do you do?
Well, as Will was telling us about this, those times that he was feeling bad and that being a pattern, I asked him then, I said, was that related to the Adderall? And he said yes, that he was taking more than what was prescribed, and so he would fall short before the next refill. And so his dad and I immediately put a plan in place. We met with some different professionals and got him on a plan to overcome this addiction, and he was seeing a physician and a counselor, and these two professionals work together with patients. So that was the plan that we put. In addition, Daniel, to Will being prescribed Adderall, he was never tested for attention deficit disorder. And he also was prescribed cough syrup with codeine, an anti-anxiety, and an antidepressant, along with the strong dose of Adderall. Then Daniel, I would like to say to all the mothers and fathers out there listening to know the facts about suicide. More than 90% of people who lose their life to suicide suffer with an addiction and or a mental health issue. I would like to emphasize to parents to ensure that your child has a standardized risk assessment done if they suffer with either or both of these things. Assessments do save lives. And Daniel, I would like to say to the practitioners and counselors to please do a standardized risk assessment on your patients. You have nothing to lose but much to gain. I feel that by doing this, you can assess and you can manage the potential signs of suicidal ideations, especially among people who don't show the typical signs. That tragic day on Monday, October the 17th, 2016, at 5:10 p.m. held a perfect storm, and my son Will lost all hope. His suicide was not planned. The empty bottle of prescription Adderall that I found sitting on the top of his bedroom chest with nothing else sitting there said it all.
So during this time, you're working with these professionals, and were they ever telling you that they had run any risk assessment or that they had any reason to believe that suicide was a risk factor for Will?
No, that was never mentioned. And Will was one of those individuals that if you were to see him, you would never know that he was going through any type of addiction, because he could, he would smile and he would be engaging, and people in our community were just shocked when this happened.
Can imagine. And there are so many parents out there who have gone through these situations, and for any parent who's struggling with their children, do you have any message for them or anything you would want them to know?
Well, yes, I would say to parents that are struggling, they know that something's wrong, and if their child is dealing with any type of addiction or any type of mental health issue, depression, that they have a risk assessment, a standardized risk assessment done on their child to determine if they are suicidal.
And that's a proactive approach, I imagine, that you would hope would be standard throughout the healthcare industry.
Absolutely.
What would your message be to the healthcare industry, the counseling industry, about those risk assessments?
That they are extremely important. I would ask that the healthcare professionals and people that are in counseling, that they do a standardized risk assessment, especially on those individuals if they're battling an addiction or a mental health issue. You can't just determine that they're doing okay by their presentation. And that risk assessment is a way that they can gather information on the patient or the client, so it saves lives. Risk assessments save lives.
Ms. George, the last thing I would ask you is, you're an incredibly strong person. You've gone through so much, and there are a lot of other folks out there who are going through the same thing, have or will gone through the same thing. What gives you hope?
My faith. God has carried me through this awful experience, and He gives me courage. He gives me hope, and I trust His plan for me. I have days, I'm human, so I have days where I really have to work hard to pick myself up and keep going. But I have two precious sons and a wonderful husband, and I've decided that, I'm going to find joy in my life, and because I know that Will would want that too.
Absolutely. Well, Miss George, thank you so much for taking the time to share this story, share your family's story, and know there are a lot of folks out there who will be helped just by hearing it.
Thank you, Daniel.